was also reflected in my grandparents' lives and leadership beyond our family. My grandfather, President Jaima Rahman, understood that development was incomplete if women were excluded. He saw women as capable contributors at home, at work, and in public life. And that belief carried into the choices he made as a leader. Under his leadership, the expansion of the garment sector meant millions of women entered formal work for the first time, gaining independence and income. The creation, then, of the Ministry of Women's Affairs reflected a conviction that improving the lives of women and girls required intention and structure. These were not just policy decisions, but they were an extension of the values that he lived by personally. That foundation was carried forward by my grandmother, Begum Khaleda Zia, who understood the transformative power of education that gave women voice, choice, and confidence. Under her leadership, girls' education was treated as a right, not a privilege. Free secondary schooling, alongside programs such as Food for Education, Cash for Education, helped keep millions of girls in schools and change the course of families across the country. Her female secondary school assistance project achieved gender parity for the first time in secondary education and became a model replicated beyond Bangladesh. আমি যদি একটু সময় নিয়ে অ্যাকচুয়ালি একটা ঘটনা মনে এসেছে দাদুর ব্যাপারে এটা বলতে বলতে দাদু যখন আমাদের সাথে লন্ডনে ছিলেন গত বছর প্রথমের দিকে উনি যখন এসেছিলেন তখন হাসপাতালে ছিলেন কিছু চিকিৎসার জন্য ওখানে বিভিন্ন দেশ থেকে নার্স ছিল ডাক্তার ছিলেন এবং একটি নার্স ছিলেন নাইজেরিয়া ওয়েস্ট আফ্রিকাতে আম্মা আব্বা একদিন দাদুকে সকাল সকাল দেখতে গেছিল তো নার্স তারপরে বললেছে যে ও আমি তো আপনার মাকে চিনেছি আম্মু আব্বু বলল কিভাবে আপনার মাই প্রথম ইলেক্টেড প্রাইম মিনিস্টার বাংলাদেশের না আম্মু আব্বু তো অবাক হ্যাঁ আপনি কিভাবে জানেন তো নার্স তারপরে বলল যে আপনাদের যে উনি যে এত কিছু করেছেন এই মেয়েদের শিক্ষার জন্য স্পেশালি প্রাইমারি এডুকেশন ফুড ফর এডুকেশন ক্যাশ ফর এডুকেশন এগুলো আমাদের সরকার ওই ৩৫-৩০ বছর আগে দেখে ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করেছিল আর ওই কারণে লক্ষ লক্ষ মেয়েরা গ্রাম অঞ্চলে ওদের দেশে গ্রাম অঞ্চলে বিভিন্ন জায়গা সদরে এখনো শিক্ষা পাচ্ছে অন্তত প্রাইমারি এডুকেশন লেভেলে সো ভাবলাম একটু শেয়ার যদি করি এখানেই করবো আপনাদের সাথে জি She also understood that education alone was not enough if women were not supported to remain in public and economic life. Supporting women to access credit, build livelihoods, and grow small businesses mattered. So did recognizing the realities of motherhood, of childcare, and that required systems being strengthened around maternity leave and childcare, which she did. That is because women were made to choose between family and participation in the economy. For me, these legacies show the values that I saw both reflected at home and in public. I was privileged to grow up surrounded by exceptional women, confident, capable, and accomplished. I was equally fortunate to have male role models, including my father and my grandfather, who valued those women and never felt threatened by their strength or ambition. In fact, the four most important people in my father's life, in my opinion, have been women for decades. And he has treated them with deep respect and reverence, not as an exception, but as the norm. Because of this, I grew up with what I now recognize was a skewed understanding of society. Living between Bangladesh and the UK taught me something important. Policies and access alone do not create equality. You can expand education, pass laws, set national targets, but if social norms and daily expectations and mindsets remain unequal, empowerment remains fragile. This is not about overt discrimination. Inequality often survives through habit and comfort, through what feels normal. In Bangladesh, women still perform around 85% of unpaid household and care work, spending over 7 times as many hours as men on this labor each day. This work is valued at 19% of our GDP and remains largely invisible in economic planning and national decision-making. This makes something very clear. Gender equality is not a women's issue, it is an economic and national issue. When women carry the bulk of responsibility, their participation in the formal economy suffers. Despite significant gains in girls' education, women's labor force participation in Bangladesh remains below 40% compared to over 80% for men. Women are far more likely to step back from paid work after marriage or childbirth, not because they lack ability or ambition, but because systems assume they will absorb the cost. This imbalance begins early. Girls are expected to adjust their ambitions around family needs, while boys are rarely taught that responsibility and care are shared obligations. Over time, this became structural